Councillor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to formally welcome you this evening, may I introduce the Right Honourable, the Lord Provost of the City of Glasgow, Councillor Sadie Docherty.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome the Scottish Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament to the Glasgow City Chambers tonight. We gather today to mark the 70th anniversary of the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by atomic bombs. As well as our events, there are a number being held across the country, from Aberdeen to Anstruther and from Paisley to Peebles. And of course, Glasgow has a proud anti-nuclear campaigning history stretching back more than 2 decades. This commitment has never waned, for we continue to provide the administration and secretarial support to the Scottish activities of nuclear-free authorities. The Glasgow councillors continue to represent the council in this movement, and Councillor Butler is here tonight with us. And of course, the Scottish CND has routinely forced governments and the nuclear industry to reconsider policies such as the transportation of low-level radioactive waste from Dounreay to Caithness and to Drink in Cumbria. Our commitment to nuclear-free local authorities agenda continues with our membership of Mayors for Peace, founded by the mayors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, with the ultimate goal for achieving a nuclear-free world. The more recent tragedy at the nuclear one, I can't say it just now. I know what it is. Fukushima.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. The more recent tragedy of Fukushima in Japan can only strengthen our resolve to opposing nuclear technology, and that's within all of our lifetimes. I think for me that is a very, very telling thing. Ladies and gentlemen, the gap between that incident and the one 75 years ago is only 66 years, and hundreds of kilometres separate those disasters, but they were absolute disasters. Our thoughts are with the innocent people of Hiroshima. I can't say that. Fukushima today, living with the fallout of that disaster. Apologies for not being able to say that, but I think it's something that Glasgow has got a very, very proud history of, and that is that we continue to campaign against nuclear arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, to reply to the Lord Provost Civic welcome, may I introduce MacKinnon, Glasgow CND.
Thank you very much. It was a very warm welcome from Glasgow Lord Provost, and it I think indicates the continuing active role that Glasgow is playing in the nuclear-free local authorities campaign, which we heard something about, and also the Mayors for Peace campaign, which is a growing campaign across the world. We're here today, of course, to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the dropping of the first atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. A single bomb destroyed 13 square kilometres of the city. 3 days later, another bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. The death toll from these 2 bombs has been estimated at around 260,000 people. These were not military targets. Less than 5% of the dead were military personnel. 95% were civilians. So as we commemorate these events 7 decades later, we should remember that there's a dangerous complacency about these weapons today. We've kind of normalised them. We've accepted that somehow this is normal to be living with nuclear weapons, when in fact it's not. And they are immensely dangerous, just as dangerous, if not more so, than they were with the first nuclear weapon. 18,000 of these weapons remain in the hands of the nuclear weapon states, mostly in the hands of the United States and Russia, each one of them with much more destructive power than the weapon that was used in Hiroshima. Many of them, at least 2,000, on hair trigger alert, ready to be launched on warning. and the number of times when we've been so close to a nuclear accident, a nuclear war by accident, is breathtaking, in fact, and should be a warning to anyone who thinks that somehow it's possible to live long term with these weapons. They are, for a number of reasons, immoral, illegal, and a colossal waste of money. And we've got 200 warheads just 25 miles down the coast in Coalport and Fastlane. So we've got them on our doorstep. So as well as being a colossal waste of money, they send all the wrong messages around the world. If nuclear weapons are unnecessary for our security, which is the argument our government continuously makes, then why not for the security of every other country in the world? That argument should be able to apply in equally. Of course, that's a nonsense. If you had 200 countries in the world with nuclear weapons instead of just 9 as we have at the present time. The truth is that these weapons provide absolutely no security, not to anyone in Scotland or any other part of Britain. Instead, it puts us in danger. And if we threaten others around the world, then we should not be surprised if we become targets ourselves. All the more reason then for us to get rid of these weapons and join the global campaign for a worldwide ban. That campaign is now supported by the governments of 113 countries at least. It's growing almost daily across the world. So it's a national campaign for us. It's a campaign in Scotland, it's a campaign in Britain, but it's also a campaign that's international as well. Two important components of that campaign. So I'm delighted that we've got the support of Glasgow City Council for the event tonight, and we've been able to hold the meeting in this delightful place, and I'm delightful with the welcome from the Lord Provost. And I know that the people in this room represent a very broad range of opinion in Scotland. Civic Scotland, in fact, is what we represent, and we should never forget that we're speaking for hundreds of thousands, millions of people in Scotland who share the same views as us. So what we're going to hear tonight, the testimonies, the poems, the music, the historical context in which these weapons were used, the medical effects of these weapons, all of that should remind us again that the disaster of nuclear war should never be repeated. And just the reality of what these weapons represent. And if our message is to be that these weapons must never be used again, then the only way to make sure that happens is for us to get rid of them. Not only in Scotland, but from every other part of the UK and every other country in the world. So we need to build the anti-Trident campaign, but we need to also build the international campaign to achieve a global ban, which is growing so fast at the present time. So without further ado, can I ask Chris Dolan to come and do some readings. Thanks.
Hi, I thought I'd start with just a wee anti-war poem by a local writer, by Jackie Kay. And it's quite interesting because it's Jackie writing about her dad, John Kay, who I know a number of people in this room will know. So this is called Bantam by Jackie Kay, and it's headlined, "My father at 87 remembers his father at 17. It wasn't men they sent to war, it was boys like bantams. We men named after a small breed of chickens, or later a jeep, a bike, a Cameron. That needy for soldiers, they dropped height restriction, so small men came to war. As a prisoner, my father's weight fell, and years later, the shrapnel through the Somme shot out a wee jewel hidden in his left arm." That's a Jackie Kay's poem. I've done a number of these things. I'm always very, very privileged to be asked to do little things like this. I'm always looking for war poems, and every time I do one, I think I should really write something specially, and it's usually too late, and that's the case this time again. But the last book I had out kind of touches on the whole subject of war and belief and stuff like that. So I thought I'd just read a couple of very small bits from Aliyah, which is this somehow. I should just tell you the background to it is very, very loosely based on a Robert Louis Stevenson short story called Olala. It's about a young soldier, I call him here Captain Haldane, who's stuck behind the enemy lines, and he's in a house, as far as he knows at the moment, with an older man who's a kind of a cleric figure called Dolan, and a woman called Mahaba. That's about all he knows. He can't remember what brought him there. There's something to do with the helicopter, that's all he knows. This is a little bit of a conversation between Haldane and Dolan, the older man. Tell me about the war. All wars are the same, Thomas. Dolan sat in a low stool under the canopy of an ancient tree, like a man in a pew under a vaulted church roof. Haldane leaned against the tree trunk. One war leads to another, and then another. War breeds war. But what about this particular war, Dolan? No doubt distinguished by its unique weapons, the design of uniforms, its medals, flags. There are particular massacres, atrocities. It came out of the last war, and it will lead to the next. Haldane smiled at the old man. You think a lot, Dolan. I didn't say tell me about war, but about the war, this war. I'm only trying to remember. Then I'm of no use to you, my friend. They're all the same to me. Haldane sat in the grass and kept his back against a tree. Is war always evil? Doesn't it show nobility, courage, fighting for the good? Perhaps it can, perhaps, but which good? And to what end, I wonder? Haldane thought for a moment and asked, if each war stems from the last, then there must have been a first war, the daddy of them all. Dolan says, I think that is possible. A battle so long ago and in so distant a place that we cannot now comprehend who or what started it or what it was about. All we know is it was never finally won or lost, as no war ever is. Recon. The word came back to him later as he lay in his bed, the room infused with ambergris or some aroma that reminded him of incense in chapels. His job had been reconnaissance. He hadn't thought they were overly deep into enemy territory that day in the helicopter. They were laughing about something. He had an image in his head of seeing a woman lying in a clearing, happy, sunning herself. But then in the helicopter there was a noise, not an explosion, more like when a car prangs, nothing too alarming. Something may have gone wrong with the engine. There was no one below that he could remember who could have hit them with bullets or shells, but the engine noise kept changing, the pilot anxiously pushing buttons and pulling levers. At first, the chopper seemed to float upwards. Then it swooped, swirling them about inside, throwing them around in their seats. There was shouting, a rush of wind, and a door opened somewhere. And then the plunging. Not just falling, but being sucked down and into darkness, though it must still have been daytime. Not dropping, but being pulled, as if some force below, some beast below even the ground itself, was reaching up and grabbing them, tearing them out of the sky. Haldane's skin froze as he remembered the terror of that lurching. The headlong dive, the suction from under the earth. He was shivering on his bed now, violently, and he thought that if he should have died then, he was going to now instead. Then there was darkness, like oil crude and rancid, until he was no longer there, not in his bed on infinite blackness, just a knowledge that there was nothing, that in that nothing there was the idea of him. Just before he woke, or as he was waking, the darkness seemed to change, soft, velvety, in the smell of pear, pomegranate, and he opened his eyes to white walls and the window with a single green tree and its crimson blooms. He remembered Mahaba, working at her embroidery the night before. Curses and blessings, she said. I'm never quite sure that we little mortals are worth such great things. Like heaven and hell, they seem out of proportion to me. Our puny exploits on earth hardly deserve so much, don't you think, Captain? But I do believe in dreams. I like to make things, Captain Haldane, like this gown. Each time I start on a new piece, I want it to be what I see in my mind's eye in my dreams. Of course, that never happens. It's not just never as good as I'd hoped, but it also turns out different. Something other than what I'd set out to make. There's a kind of destruction in everything we tried to create. but that shouldn't keep us from the attempt. Haldane had said, "I'm sorry, I'm not quite following." "It doesn't matter," Mahaba laughed. "I'm only saying we need to do something with our dreams. Otherwise, they may stop visiting us, and that would be darkness." So that's from Malia. One last little poem. This is from, if you come across me, he's fantastic, Sankichi Toge, whose whole life is extraordinary. He died quite young, but he was a survivor of the bombing of Hiroshima. And he's written a whole number of lovely poems. This is a very short one. I've got an even shorter one at the very end. And this is called, by Sankichi Toge, it's called No More Hiroshimas. Give back the human. Give back my father. Give back my mother. Give grandpa back. Grandma back. Give me my sons and daughters back. Give me back myself. Give me back the human race. As long as this life lasts, this life, give back peace. That will never end. So that's Sankichi Toge. And one tiny little thing, I was looking for a little haiku but piece to finish up with. And I thought, well, I couldn't find anything that was exactly right, so I thought I should try and write something. It's only 17 syllables. So I'm going to write. So I've written a haiku. But I remember when I was writing, I remember the haiku by John Cooper Clarke, whose haiku I love is, "To write a poem in exactly 17 syllables is very, very difficult." But this actually has 17 syllables, I think. Prayers rise up like poison gas, heavens in a rage. Let there be peace on earth.